Well, I would like to talk about an English Salon. It's a magazine to which I heard or introduced by me by my best friend Peter when I was still studying high school. Um, it was quite of good memory and also wonderful resource to acquire some skills and also opinions from other English learners. I mean, those successful one, of course. Well, here is the few things I really liked about it, and also what I've learned from it. Completely changed my life. With all the experience or the suggestions from those predecessors in English learning, I've learned that maybe the process of acquiring this language skill would be quite different from what I expect just reciting the articles or some of the opinions from others. In order to do that well, most of them do have some personality that requires us to imitate or even to learn from. The first one would be per activities, right? As the way I see it, most of those um, outstanding individuals in English learning, they do have a good habit, which is to take note on whatever useful or the wonderful expressions of vocabularies or sentences, right? They do have their own private notebook. I mean, just a small booklet to keep on track and also to practice them daily by putting those newly learned knowledge in their daily expression so they could close to native speaker. Whereas I also imitate and also follow the instruction, and I feel it extremely practical. Another thing, kind of epiphany that I have in this way is patience. For no matter in English study or our daily life, we would encounter lots of difficulties required us to find out some of innovative ideas instead of just simply plagiarized others' opinion. But in this way, it will be much better for English learners to express their will of their ideas with simple language instead of using all those fancy vocabularies and try to impress others. Well, it's not only a bad way to lose your own innovation or maybe the creativity, and also it would completely destroy the ability to come up with their own ideas. Well, so that's what I've learned from this magazine and the quite a good source I would like to introduce. Thank you so much. Why are sales of newspapers generally higher than sales of magazines? Well, from my own personal view, newspaper, they're printed form of medias which come with wider range of news coverage. So readers would find out lots of international or domestic informations which quite of in a daily manner. However, the magazines, it's a publication that only released on maybe weekly, even monthly basis. The schedule or maybe the time would be a little bit of different, maybe difficult for readers to keep track on the current events. This is the one of the inconvenience I could think of. Besides, generally the newspaper they come with much more resources and in a relatively lower price than magazines, which we know most of individual they would prefer to spend less money on require more details. So those are the ideas I believe the why this phenomenon would exist. Right? What different types of newspaper and magazine available where you live? Well, to be honest, most of individuals here in China or around my communities, all right, just in my daily life, they are Chinese who live here in China. Therefore, most of them will be really interested in domestic news, which could reflect on the current issues that happen around themselves that have the direct impact on their own life. Due to the fact that China also facing a quite of rapidly development on economy. Then the foreign trading or some of the international current events would also be another focus point for people who would like to join in a part of the globalization. Well, so those are the two types of news that quite have be interested by individuals around me. Are newspapers and magazines more popular now than in the past? Well, due to the fact that development of the technology dramatically changed the way people acquire their informations. Well, I guess as printed form for both of them, they're printed form of medias which require scrutiny or examination before they were released into the public. Then most of the readers nowadays they do prefer to acquire their maybe ideas or the informations from internet, which is much faster than both of those traditional form of media. Well, they're actually less read than before. In your country, I mean in China, would you say that people prefer to read magazine or newspapers? Frugality is one of the traditional virtue here in China. Then most of individuals they do care about on the magazine, or maybe they do care about on the source they read, right? Care about the money they spend on the source they read. Then since newspaper is the lower cost and maybe cheaper way of media people could get in the newsstand in their daily life, well, I would say most of readers here in China they prefer newspaper rather than magazine. In general, what kind of people prefer reading magazines and what kind of people prefer reading newspapers? Um, all right, so the basic differences between magazine and newspaper is that one, they contains a broader range of knowledge, which is the newspaper, and for magazines, since it's need to diversify itself from newspaper and so differentiate their own strength and point. Most of the resource that contains in it would be more profound, and also sometimes they do prefer to write some editorial or the interviews from the elites or quite like outstanding individuals nowadays in our society. Then for those who want more insightful ideas, or maybe just find out the deeper level, right? Maybe the more difficult level on some of the events, they would make magazine as their priority of reading resources. And as for newspapers, since it's a form cover more informations, and for those who just want to know the surface or the general ideas, they do prefer to read newspaper, I guess. And another elements or determinations divided readers' choices, I guess, would be the cost, right? For those who want to spend less money, they would make their their options on newspaper, right? And vice versa, or maybe on the contrary, those just have more time or money to spend on, they would choose magazine, right? Those are my ideas. What benefits do people get from reading newspapers and magazines? Well, generally speaking, both of those medias they contain the current informations or events that happened around the world. It will provide opportunity for readers to figure out or have a basic figure in understanding information about the current events to broaden the horizon. Also, I guess both of these methods would be the process of receiving signal or informations with the eyesight. The more the reader allocate times on the practice of reading, I guess they are faster. They could just understand the meanings between the lines and provide them the faster comprehensive skill.
Okay, sample 3 on magazines. Let's do this.
Well, I would like to talk about an English salon. It's a magazine which I heard or introduced by me by my best friend Peter when I was still studying high school.
Okay, A lot of grammatical errors. I'd like to talked, so he has problems using the infinitive correctly. I couldn't quite catch the name of the magazine, but hey, sometimes names are hard to hear clearly. Introduced by me, introduced to me when I was still studying in high school. Lots of errors, but we can still understand what he's saying.
Still studying in high school, it was quite of good memory, and also
So here he's using an adverb, a preposition, and an adjective. Why is there a preposition there? It was quite a good memory. Why was it a memory? Why is it not a memory now? So it is quite a good memory.
wonderful resource to acquire some skills and also opinions from other English learners. I mean, those successful ones, of course.
Successful ones.
Well, here is the few things I really liked about it, and also
Here are a few things. Things are.
what I've learned from it completely changed my life.
What is he saying here? What I've learned from it completely changed my life. Oh, okay. Life, not lifed.
With all the experience or the suggestions from those predecessors in English learning,
Predecessor is not used with learning. Predecessor is used in a title, for example, a king or a president or a job title, not for learning. This is not a title.
I've learned that maybe the process of acquiring this language skill would be quite different from what I expect just reciting.
Okay, let's see here. If you look at the first verb, actually, I can't tell where he's starting from. I've learned that. Okay, here we go. So I've learned that. So it sounds like it's in the past, but this is in the present. Okay, so this should be different from what I expected. Here we see the same thing again. We have an adverb, an adjective, and a preposition. So this guy uses quite of all the time. There's no of. It would be quite different from what I expected. No of. So definitely a systematic error with of. He does this all the time.
Different from what I expect just reciting the articles or some of the opinions from others. In order to do that well, most of them do have.
In order to do what well? What is he saying now? He's saying he expected he would be reciting articles in order to learn English, or recite the opinions of others to learn English well. But here he says it would be quite different. So he would not do this. He would not just recite. But then here he says, in order to do that well. But if you are not doing this, why do you care if you can do it well or not?
Others. In order to do that well, most of them do have some personality that requires us to imitate or even to learn from.
I don't understand. This is most of them required us. Who is he talking about here?
To imitate or even to learn from. The first one would be proactivity.
Learn from what? Learn from, I don't know.
Imitate or even to learn from. The first one would be proactivities, right? As the way I see it, most of those outstanding individuals in English learning, they do have a good habit, is which
I was going to say something, but he corrected himself, which is
to take note on whatever useful or the wonderful expressions of vocabularies or.
There's no word like vocabularies. It's vocabulary. Take notes on useful expressions. Let's not call them wonderful. Let's call them useful. Take notes on useful expressions or vocabulary.
Wonderful expressions of vocabularies.
There's no. There's no expression of vocabulary. So useful expressions or vocabulary or sentences, okay?
Right. They do have their own private notebook.
I don't know what a private notebook is. Are notebooks supposed to be private? Why not just say notebook?
I mean, just a small booklet to keep on track.
The word is track, not tracked. Okay, a little notebook to help them keep on track, I suppose, to keep them dedicated to their studies. All right.
Keep on track. And also to practice them daily.
No, you don't practice people daily. There's no them. And also to practice daily. There's no them. You don't practice people.
Practice them daily by putting those newly learned.
Why does he say newly? Okay, but anyway, it's good to see this adverb here with the adjective newly learned knowledge. That's not bad. But it says newly learned knowledge in the daily expression. Using those newly learned sentences. Why use the word knowledge? Using those newly learned sentences in daily conversation. Why not say daily conversation? By using those newly learned sentences and phrases in daily conversation.
Knowledge in their daily expression, so they could close to native speak.
Here we have a modal. They could close. Here we have an adjective, be close. They could approximate, speaking like a native speaker, or they can speak as close as possible. Not speak, they can sound. Maybe sound would be a better word. So they could sound as close as possible to what a native speaker would sound like. They would sound almost like a native speaker.
Whereas I also imitate and also follow the instruction, and I feel it extremely.
It is. Here's an adjective. There's no be verb. It is extremely practical.
Another thing, kind of epiphany that I have in.
That I had. Epiphany is a great word, but it's got to be in the past tense. So an epiphany that I had was that. I don't know. Wait, there's no be verb here.
For no matter in English study or our daily life, we would encounter lots of difficulties.
Okay, so when we encounter difficulties in our daily lives, we need to come up with some innovative ideas to... Oh, and there's no to. Okay, so we need to come up with some innovative ideas instead of plagiarizing others. There's no opinion here. Instead of plagiarizing others.
Plagiarized others' opinion. But in this way, it will be much better for English learners to express.
English learners. So this way it's much easier or useful, better, I guess it's okay too.
The will of their ideas with simple language.
But that's not what he's doing here, because look at how long the sentence is, and it's so difficult to follow what he's trying to say. Definitely not simple language.
To express the will of their ideas with simple language instead of using all those fancy vocabularies.
Again, it's vocabulary, not vocabularies. Here is ing, so why is this not an ing? Instead of using all those fancy vocabularies, trying to impress others. To impress. There's no ed. This is an infinitive.
And try to impress others. But it's not only a bad way to lose your own innovation.
Innovation? Why on earth is he talking like that? I'm not sure that you can lose innovation, but okay. Lose creativity. I don't understand. If you use complex vocabulary, why is that not being creative? Why is that not being innovative? I don't get it.
Innovation, or maybe the creativity, and also it would completely destroy the
Modal past tense. No. Modal base verb. It would completely destroy.
ability to come up with their own ideas. Well, so that's what I've learned from this
Here we have quite of again.
magazine, and a quite a good source I would like to introduce. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that was part 2. It was ridiculously long. It was 2 minutes and 55 seconds. No, why? Why is it so long? It was not good. I mean, just speaking for longer, it doesn't mean your score is going to be higher. It's still going to be a 6. But anyway, let's go on to listen to part 3.
Why are sales of newspapers generally higher than sales of magazines?
Okay, magazines. Okay, anyway. Man, this is an interesting question.
Of magazine. Well, from my own personal view, newspaper, their printed form of media.
Now, later on, he's going to explain himself better. But if we just look at this phrase here, this doesn't make any sense. From my own personal view, from my own personal point of view, newspapers are a printed form of media. There should be no S there. There should be an S there. Media, no. But newspapers being a printed media is not an opinion. That's a fact. That's an objective fact.
Come with wider range of news coverage.
Why is he making it so complicated for himself? Okay, so newspapers cover a wide range of news. Newspapers cover a wide range of news.
So readers would find out
It's readers. There's no D.
lots of international or domestic informations which
Information, there's no S. And why not say news? Why say information? So readers can catch up with a lot of international and domestic news.
manners. However,
Whoa, we missed a phrase there.
informations which quite of in a daily manners.
Oh my goodness. No, it's not in a daily manner. And this why is there an S there? But anyway, this phrase is wrong. It doesn't matter if there's an S or not. I mean, we understand newspapers are printed daily. I'm not sure what to say about this. Okay, so readers can catch up with international or domestic news daily. Just daily. There's no manners. There's no quite of. There's nothing else. Just daily.
Which quite of in a daily manners. However, the magazines, it's a publication.
Magazines, it's why do we need the pronoun at all? So magazines are published. It's not released, it's published. Magazines are published maybe weekly or even monthly.
Released on maybe weekly, even monthly basis.
Okay, so like I just said, magazines are published maybe weekly or monthly.
The schedule or maybe the time would be a little bit of different, maybe difficult for readers to keep track on the current events.
Okay, so that because they are not regularly published, they can't really give us the latest breaking news.
Events. This is the one of the inconvenience I could think
If it's one of, this has to be plural. This is one of the inconvenience. I can. Why could? You're thinking about it now.
of. Besides, generally the newspaper, they come with much more resources and a relatively lower price.
The preposition for price is at. So newspapers come at a lower price and they have much more resources. Wait a moment, why is it much more? It should be many more. They come with many more resources at a lower price. Many, not much. Look at this, resources.
Resources in a relatively lower price than magazines, which we know most of individuals they would prefer to spend less money on require more details.
I don't know what he's saying. What is he saying? We know most individuals. Why is there a they? Drop the pronouns. You already have the noun here, individuals. And it's not most of, it's most. Okay, so most individuals would prefer to spend less on, and then here's a verb. Why is there a preposition and then a verb? It's preposition noun. Spend less money on requiring details. I don't know how you require details. Okay, so newspapers come at a lower price, and people prefer to spend less money on getting their news. Why not say that? People would rather spend less money on getting their news.
So those are the ideas, I believe, why this phenomenon would exist, right? What difference?
Wow, that's ridiculously long. That's like over a minute long. And he could have just he could have said that in 2 sentences, I think.
Types of newspaper and magazine available where you live.
Okay, it should be newspapers, magazines are available.
Well, to be honest, most of individuals here.
Again, it's not most of individuals, it's most individuals. There's no of. You're talking about people in general, you're not talking about a specific group.
In China or around my communities, right? Just in my daily life, they are.
My communities. Well, don't people just live in one community? How can you be in different communities at the same time?
Chinese who live here in China. Therefore, most of them will be really interested in domestic news.
Why not are? Most of them are interested in domestic news. I forgot the question. What is the question? Okay, what kinds of magazines are available? All right, let's see. So domestic
communities, all right, just in my daily life, they are Chinese who live here in China. Therefore, most of them will be really interested in domestic news, which could.
Okay. News, noun. Okay, which could. Let's see what's going to happen now.
Reflect on the current issues that happen around themselves.
Why is he explaining what domestic news is? The examiner knows what domestic news is. You don't need to define words. Okay, so they're interested in domestic news since they are Chinese. Why are you talking about this?
That have the direct impact on their own life. Due to the fact that China also facing a quite of rapidly development on economy.
Okay, now he's starting to speak faster also. Face is usually used with problems. If you're talking about a rapidly developing economy, it's not a problem, so we don't need face. Rapidly, adverb, development, noun. No, rapidly developing economy.
Then the foreign trading or some of the international current events would also be another focus point for
what is happening here. Okay, we need to work on the structure a little bit here. Let's see here. Okay, let's go back to the question. Okay, what types? Okay, so the first type would be domestic news, because most people who live in my community are Chinese people, and so of course they want to know what's going on in their community. And then another kind of magazine that's popular would be the kind of magazines that focus on foreign trading or international current events. And then you can talk about China's economy. I don't know why this is relevant, and this is not necessary. So the first kind is domestic news, second kind, foreign trading. But you do need those markers. First, second. Otherwise, your answer is a mess and it's difficult to know what you are trying to say.
Point for people who
especially if you are a weak speaker like this person is.
would like to join in a part of the globalization. So
A magazine. Here he doesn't even say that they're magazines. He just says foreign trading or some international current event. But those are not focus points. Those are interests. So those would be interests for some people who would like to, I don't know what this is, join in a part of the globalization. I don't know what to say about that. People who are interested in globalization, I guess.
globalization. So those are the two types of news that quite have been
Quite a B.
interested by individuals around me. Are newspapers and magazines more popular now than in the past?
Pretty common question. Comparison between now and the past.
Well, due to the fact that development of the
development of technology. The is in the wrong place. It should be here. The development of technology has dramatically changed the way people acquire. There's no D there.
technology dramatically changed the way people acquire their informations.
Again, information is not countable.
But I guess as printed form, for both of them, they're printed form of medias, which
What is happening here? There. Oh, okay. So he's talking about newspapers and magazines. But then what is all this? Why are you talking about this? And then you are talking about both of them. Them. What does the them refer to? You just talked about technology, and then you say them. Okay, they're printed media. Printed media. No form, no of, no s. They're printed media.
well, I guess as printed form, for both of them, they're printed form of medias, which require scrutiny or examination before they were released into the public.
Information is not released into the public, it's released to the public. I don't know why this is were. Is he talking about the past now? See, this is so confusing. Because the question is asking about now and the past, right? Here he's talking about the present. Well, actually, no, he's not. He talks about the past. I'm sorry, I take that back. This is in the past tense. But here's present tense. They are printed forms of media. So in the past, is this the past part? So in the past, people had to scrutinize the news. Is he talking about fake news?
Or examination before they were released into the public. Then most of the readers now they do prefer to acquire their the ideas or the informations from internet, which is
This is so hard to understand. What is he saying? Why not make it easy? The question says now and in the past. So why not just say, oh well, in the past, but I don't even know how to finish the sentence because I don't know what he's trying to say. So in the past, people had to scrutinize information. I don't know who the people are. Because the people are not the readers, because it says before they're released to the public. Okay, I don't know. Very hard to say. But so in the past, newspapers had to be scrutinized, whereas nowadays, but you need a phrase like whereas to show the change. You're talking about something else that's different to show the contrast. Whereas now, readers get their news from the internet, which is faster. than traditional forms of media.
Of media. Well, they're actually less read than before.
It's less read. I don't know what the answer to this question is. Because right at the end they said magazines are less read. But there are online magazines. If I was the examiner talking to this guy, I would say, well, what about online magazines? Because if he says they're less read, they're online, people are still reading them.
In your country, in China, would you say that people prefer to read magazine or newspapers?
Magazines.
Legality is one of the traditional virtue here in China that most of individuals they do care about on the magazine.
Oh my goodness, why is he speaking so fast now? And what does this mean? Frugality. Alright, so people want to save money. So most individuals care about on the magazine. I don't know what that means. People want to save money, so they care about magazines. Care about. There's no on, there's no the magazines. People are frugal, so they won't care about magazines. I don't know what that means.
Maybe they do care about on the source they read, right? Care about.
They care about the source, not on the source. They care about the source.
Money they spend on the source they read.
Okay, care about the money, but that was your first word. You said frugality. That is care about money.
Source they read, right? Care about the money they spend on the source they read. Then, since newspaper is the lower cost and maybe cheaper way of media people could get in the newsstand in their daily life, well,
I don't know. I feel like I'm getting it. It's really difficult to follow here. Okay. Okay, so people care about magazines. Right. Got that. People care about spending money. Got that. Okay, so newspapers are cheaper, so most readers in China prefer newspapers. So what is all this part here about caring about magazines? I don't know. Okay, so a lot of people in China are frugal, and since newspapers are cheaper, more people would prefer to get the news from newspapers. There we go. Let's move on.
In general, what kind of people prefer reading magazines and what kind of people prefer reading newspapers?
Well, we're speaking fast.
Alright, so the basic differences between magazine and newspaper is that one, they contain a broader range of knowledge, which is the newspaper.
One, they. Now, is the they magazines and newspapers? They, which is the newspaper. The grammar is not good. Okay, so the biggest difference between magazines and newspapers is that newspapers contain a broader range of knowledge. I don't think knowledge is the right word, it's news. So newspapers cover a broader range of news.
Broader range of knowledge, which is the newspaper. And for magazines, since it needs to diversify itself from newspaper.
This is the wrong word, but he realizes it. Here he says differentiate. So newspapers need to differentiate themselves from newspapers.
Differentiated.
It's differentiate, not differentiated. Differentiate if you want people to know you are different from something else. You're not the same.
Their own strength and point.
Strong point.
Most of the resource that contains in it would be more profound.
I don't know what this means. Most of the resource would be more profound. No idea.
Also, sometimes they do prefer to write some editorial or the interviews.
Newspapers have editorials too. Newspapers have interviews too.
From the elites.
The word is elite. Elite.
Or quite like outstanding.
Quite. Why is there individuals? Why is there an or outstanding doesn't take any adverbs, or outstanding individuals. Elite or outstanding individuals.
In individuals nowadays in our society.
I don't know why you have nowadays, because if they're dead, you can't interview them. Let's drop this. Outstanding individuals in society.
Then for those who want more insightful ideas, or maybe just find out the deeper level.
I don't know what is going on here. Let's go back to the question. Okay, why people prefer reading magazines? What kind of people prefer reading newspapers? So where is he talking about people? Here. This is the first time he starts talking to people. Those who want more insightful ideas prefer magazines. Okay, so this needs to go in the beginning, because I had to listen to all of this. It's just really hard to follow all of this to get to this point here. Put your answer in the beginning. So those who want insightful ideas, put that in the beginning, and then you can explain all of this, whatever it is you're trying to say, and then use a sequencer, maybe, or a discourse marker, whereas, however, as for, like as for people who read newspapers, those are probably the kind of people who just want to know the surface, general ideas. Okay?
Since it's a form cover more information, and for those who just want to know the surface or the general ideas.
So for those who just want the headlines with maybe a little bit of commentary, they prefer to read newspapers.
They do prefer to read newspaper, I guess. And another element or determinations divided readers' choices. Like,
I mean, this is English, true, but whoa, it's hard to understand. The cost. Okay. Maybe drop the first sentence here also. Let's get rid of this. And also, those who want to spend less money would, I guess, buy newspapers, and then vice versa. Those who have more money to spend choose magazines. Put the answer in the beginning. Put your explanation or your justification or your reasoning after you give the answer. Otherwise, you're going to sound like this guy, and it's hard to follow.
Ideas. What benefits do people get from reading newspapers and magazines?
Let's see if the benefits are in the beginning.
Well, generally speaking, both of those medias, they contain the current informations.
Not bad. Okay. We get current news from them. Good. There's no current information. So they both contain current news, They contain current news and events
that happened around the world.
Mm-hmm.
It will provide opportunity for readers to figure out or have a basic understanding information about the current events too.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you really need this. I mean, just say they have current events. We understand what current events are. With part 3, you don't have to explain so much. Part 1, yeah, because that's your own life. Part 2 also explains on your own life. Part 3 is not about you. You don't need to explain everything. We all live in the same world.
Broaden the horizon. Also, I guess both of
Look at this here. Also, moving on to the second point. This is much, much, much easier to understand. Also, let's see.
I guess both of these methods.
Both these methods. Wait, what methods? What is he talking about now? He's talking about there are no methods. What are the methods? You're talking about newspapers and magazines. They're not methods.
I guess both of these methods would be the process of receiving signal or information with the eyesight.
What benefits do people get from reading newspapers and magazines? They use their eyes. Is this a benefit?
The more the reader allocates time on the practice
The more the reader allocates time
of reading, I guess they are faster. They could just.
Yeah, but this is true for any kind of reading. This is not limited to magazines and newspapers. You could read comic books and it would have the same effect.
Understand the meanings between the lines and
Okay, so they can read between the lines. But I think in magazines and in newspapers, they try to avoid hiding the meaning between the lines. They want to put the information up front. They want to make it very easy for you to get the message. They're not trying to hide the message between the lines, as he says here. I don't know if this is true.
meanings between the lines and provide them the faster comprehensive skill.
It's comprehension, not comprehensive. Comprehension. Man, this one is hard. This response is unrateable. First of all, part 2 is 50% over length. It's not realistic. I can't do anything with that. And so much of the language is written down and read or otherwise prepared. And there are so many mistakes. He's trying to use high-level vocabulary. He fails almost all the time. No point in trying to rate this. Part 2 is too long. Part 3 is scripted. No point.